Hey guys, Mr. London here. Before I start the video, can you guys hear that? Yeah, that's someone's car alarm, so that's gonna be fun.
As we know from lessons past, the relationship between colonists and Great Britain is not great, and this constant arguing eventually trickled down between arguments between the colonists and the other colonists. If you can recall from the very first video of this series, I explained how the colonists were becoming quite independent from Great Britain, seeing as how North America was so far away from Great Britain. And then with everything that happened after the French and Indian War, the colonists started to feel like their freedom and independence was becoming quite restricted. Because of this, the colonists started arguing with themselves, which led to the formation of the two groups that we're going to be talking about today, the Loyalists and the Patriots. The colonies were divided over the question of independence or separation from Great Britain. Historians disagree about how many colonists chose to be either Patriots or Loyalists. Almost all believe that there were many more Patriots than Loyalists, but probably less than half the colonists were Patriots. Some colonists were neutral or did not take sides. The whole point of today's video is to define what exactly a Patriot is and what exactly a Loyalist is, so let's use the text to define what those two groups actually are. A Patriot, of the non-football player variety, is a person in the American colonies who wanted the colonies to become independent from Great Britain. Okay, but that doesn't really clear things up though. Where did they get this word Patriot? Well, I did some digging on the internet to try and narrow down the actual origin of this word. For starters, I went to good old Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, and their definition was one who loves and supports his or her country. This actually lines up quite well with the colonists who labeled themselves as patriots because they wanted their colonies to become a new and separate country from Great Britain. But my research wasn't done. I wanted to know more, and I seriously could not make this next part up. I scrolled down to the synonyms section of the website to see if I could find any extra help, and you'll never believe what word popped up for patriot. Are you kidding me? So I clicked on that word and it took me to the definition, and guys, that one actually lines up pretty well too. In the dictionary, a loyalist is defined as one who is or remains loyal, especially to a political cause, party, government, or sovereign. This is exactly what the colonists are who want Great Britain to stay in control. But it gets even wilder. Just as before, I scrolled down to synonyms and... So clearly these words are basically identical in the world of the regular dictionary, but what's their historical context behind them? Thankfully, the textbook clears that up for us. The Loyalists included many kinds of people, some of whom were rich landowners. They feared that patriot mobs might take their property. Some Loyalists were governors who had been appointed to their jobs by King George III. These men liked their government, and they felt it was their duty to make sure that British laws were obeyed in the colonies. Other Loyalists were religious leaders who believed that the king's power came from God. Many of them were members of the Church of England, Great Britain's official church. They believed it was wrong to oppose the king and told their followers that they had a duty to be loyal to the church and to the king. It's pretty obvious. That's why these guys are loyalists, right? Think about what we just read. These guys were governors appointed by the king himself. No wonder they wanted to remain loyal. If you're getting a paycheck from someone, you're not all of a sudden gonna say, nah, and go join the other side. And then you have another group of loyalists who are the church leaders, and these guys have perfect reasons to stay loyal. Now remember for a second that many of the colonists left Great Britain to seek religious freedom. These aren't those colonists. Notice that the text says that these were colonists that were members of the Church of where? Yeah, England, aka the official church of Great Britain. There's no way they're switching sides. Dictionary terms aside, though, the definition of loyalist actually makes a whole lot of sense in our textbook. After all, the root word in loyalist is loyal, and that's what many of these colonists were. They were loyal to Great Britain and the people that were giving them a comfortable life, assuming you were friends with old George here. So with the loyalists defined, finally, let's take a look at their adversaries. The Patriots. Many colonists were patriots, including merchants who lived in and around the city of Boston. They were angry about British taxes on goods such as tea and paper. The taxes hurt their businesses because many colonists boycotted the taxed goods. Some patriots were lawyers who fought in the courts against British laws that they thought were unfair. They believed that the colonists should have more say in making laws that directly affected them. Some patriots were farmers, while others were people who worked at crafts such as printing and shipbuilding. Many believed that independence would bring more wealth to the colonies. So overall here, it looks like we have three groups of people. First, we have the merchants, and they're obviously upset because their businesses are being affected by the taxes Parliament is passing. But isn't it interesting that the colonists themselves are hurting colonial businesses? As a result of their boycotting, they were actually hurting themselves because they refused to buy any goods that were taxed from colonial businesses. Weird, right?
Yeah, weird.
And next we have the lawyers, and these guys are kind of the brainiacs behind the whole operation. They were the ones that tried to use logic to persuade Great Britain that all of their laws were unfair. And finally we have the lowly farmers, and besides the merchants, these guys probably wanted independence the most. As we saw in the text, they thought that by being independent they would be able to sell more of their products without fear of getting taxed by the British and losing more money. To me, all three of these groups of people seem like they fit the bill perfectly for what a patriot is. These people have grown to love the land that they're living in, and they want to see it flourish, and they don't want the loyalists to get in the way of that. But guys, that's going to do it for today's daily dose of history. Be sure to head back over to the Google Classroom and answer our question of the day. And be sure to tune back in tomorrow, because we're going to start learning about those loyalist folks and why they thought it was a good idea to stay with Great Britain. That's all I have for you today, so with that, I will see you tomorrow.